to be to develop your skills and grow your potential. So for today's video, I wanted to do something a little bit more with a little bit more analysis on statistics about Switzerland, because I see a lot of you are interested in the technical part about the job market and the trends and so forth. So I did pick up on that, and I want to make videos that are a little bit more about the market and what you can expect. So today's video is about the pros and cons of working in Switzerland, and I will share with you some numbers for those of you who are looking for that kind of information, what you can expect. So I want to give you 4 reasons why Switzerland is a great country to work, and also 4 reasons, 4 drawbacks, I would say. So the first reason why Switzerland is a great place to work, of course, and some of you might know this already, it's the salaries. Salaries are quite high. However, and I do want to mention this, there is no minimum wage in Switzerland. So yes, salaries are higher than average, but you have to remember there's no minimum wage, so you can be offered everything and anything. So you have to be quite careful about what you are offered, because some employers will really take advantage of the fact you don't understand the market to offer you something that you will probably find interesting because you're new to Switzerland. But remember that it's quite an expensive country as well. So just to give you some statistics so that you can know pretty much what to expect. According to the OECD, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, in Switzerland 2016, average wage was about $60,000. So the dollar and the Swiss francs are about similar. So you can calculate 60,000 Swiss franc. So that's the average salary in Switzerland. So that's about 5,000 a month. That's for someone who's quite experienced and a specialist in something, so a professional basically. You can expect 5,000. Of course, if you're highly skilled, can go up to 6,000, 7,000. Diplomats get paid more close to 10,000 if they're higher senior officials, maybe with an international organization. However, if you're more on what I would call the average jobs, cleaner, bartender, waiter, taxi driver, etc., it can go down. I would say the lowest you can expect probably is about 3,600. So that's for someone who's really not skilled, I would say. Let's say a cleaner, for example, or very low skills. And that's the minimum you can expect in Switzerland. So anything you're offered, if you're low skills below that amount, that would probably be a scam. So you have to be careful. 3,600 is probably the lowest for the lower skills. 5,000 is about average. So if you're skilled and you come to Switzerland with a baggage, technical knowledge, etc., you shouldn't accept anything below that amount. So that's just to give you an idea of the environment in terms of high salaries and lower salaries and what to expect. The second pro of working in Switzerland is holidays. You do get 20 days per year, so that's quite generous for holidays. You also have public holidays, so altogether it's quite generous in terms of what you can get. And of course, that leads me to number 3 of why work in Switzerland is the work-life balance, which is also quite generous. Employees tend to do their best when they work. They're quite involved in their work, but they don't overdo it. You find countries like the United States where people basically live to work. This is not the case in Switzerland. People like to enjoy. They like taking their holidays. So the average working hours in Switzerland is 41 hours. That's the working knowledge. And the official is 45. So on your contract, you'll probably find 45 hours per week. But in technicality, most people work an average of 41 hours in Switzerland. So, of course, that leaves a lot of time because, in countries where you work 50, 60, 80 even hours a week, especially in senior positions, this is quite generous. So, good work-life balance. So that's a plus. And the fourth reason why it's great to work in Switzerland is the generous unemployment benefit. If you're working at least a year, that's the minimum. So if you work under a year, you're not getting any benefits. If you work above a year in Switzerland, you get unemployment, and that's about 80% of your salary, which is quite generous. And that's 80% of the last salary for 18 months. So that's great. So unemployment benefits are great. And of course, you do have to report to a job center, an employment office about your research to find a job. So you will be followed up with, and the idea is to put you back in the market as soon as possible. So these are 4 reasons why it's great to work in Switzerland. Now, 4 reasons why it's not so great, or the drawbacks, I would say. The first one is the pay gap. So in Switzerland, again, I'm not saying this is my opinion. This is based on research that was done for an article that I found online. So this is not my opinion. I don't share this personally. That's not my opinion. I don't think there's my personal opinion is that the pay gap is linked to the number of hours that you work. And I think that in general, women tend, again, this is not a general statement, tend to work less hours because of childcare. So you have a lot of 50%, 60%, 80% in Switzerland. So this would explain why women in general get paid less. But this article says that there's a pay gap. Women don't get the same amount that men for the number of hours that they work. So this is their statement. Number 2, the lack of job security. In Switzerland, you can be fired pretty much without reasons. So if your employer says, this was great, your job is eliminated, or we don't need you anymore, you can't really go back and say this is not right, etc. It would be very hard to prove. Employers can fire you anytime they want. It's quite a light workplace. So you don't have a very strong environment where people are protected as it is in Germany or in France, for example. So in principle, an employer can fire a worker at any time, providing that they allow for the correct notice period. So it's not illegal, it's not abusive, it's normal in Switzerland. So you have to keep that in mind. If you come all the way to Switzerland, which was the case for people I knew when I was in human resources, moving all across the world to take a job, that's great on paper, but 6 months later you can expect, potentially, I'm not saying it will be the case, you have to take into account that this is only good as it lasts. So you can be told any day that you're gone. So, in terms of salary, even if you have a high salary, you have to plan for this type of an eventual situation. So pregnant women or those on maternity leave can be fired. So that's the exception. But you can be fired when you get back to work. So that's the thing. Number 3, poor maternity and paternity leave. So it's true that in Switzerland, you're entitled to a maximum of 14 weeks paid maternity leave. So it's not a long time if you work in a country where it's much more generous. And fathers don't get any type of paternity leave. They have 1 day off, the day of the birth of the child. So if you're planning to have a family and you want to work in Switzerland, this is why this part of the video is interesting for you to know. You're not going to get a lot of maternity or paternity leave. And the last one, which is also linked to children, expensive childcare. So just to give you some numbers, again, if you have children, it's about 13 to 20% of a family income that will have to be invested in a childcare resource. So this is actually quite high compared to very generous countries, again, where it's almost free to have your child in childcare. So this is the state of things as of now. There are a lot of private nurseries that are being built and childcare centers. So it is evolving because, of course, more and more women work. So there's a demand, I would say, for more childcare, more resources in general. So it is changing, but this is the state of things as of today. It's not there yet. So in terms of childcare, you do have to expect to invest quite a big amount on the family income on childcare in Switzerland. So that gives you a little bit of, in a nutshell, what to expect